Jesus is working at a fast and furious pace. Unlike me, I enjoy telling stories out of them every bit of information I can. You'll probably see this, that this habit is borne out in this very sermon. Mark goes very quick, gets it all done, says it real precisely. I take forever to say everything or anything. This morning we discover in the Gospel of Mark that Jesus decides to go to Galilee. Somewhere between Nazareth and Bethesda, Jesus finds Philip. And for some reason, Jesus said to Philip, "Follow me." And for some odd reason, which we don't know, Philip actually does. Next, we discover that Philip is from the same hometown as Andrew and Peter. People who are reading Mark's gospel must know who Andrew and Peter are. Well, why would Mark include that information? But it's nice to have, and who cares if they are from Bethesda in the first place? Here ends the story between Jesus and Philip, as we begin yet another story. The second story tells us of Philip taking off to find his buddy Nathanael. We learn in another gospel that Nathanael is from Cana, the same town where Jesus turned water into wine. I suppose I'd want to follow Jesus if that was his case also. But anyway, Nathanael hasn't followed yet. Upon finding Nathanael, Philip explains, "Hey, Nat, we found the guy who Moses and the prophets told us about. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? He's the son of Joseph of Nazareth. You must know Joe and Mary." Nathanael, with a yawn, barely looks up at Philip and says to him, "Come on, Philip, are you nuts? Can anything worthwhile come out of Nazareth? Come on, come on." Philip simply tells Nathanael, "All right, my friend, all right, Nat. If you don't believe me, come and see." And that's the end of that story. As we come to the next story, Jesus is walking along the road where, of all people, he sees Nathanael walking toward him. There must be something interesting about Nathanael, because as he approaches, Jesus shouts out for all to hear, Here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael seems to have the same question that I have. How in heaven's name did Jesus know that Nathanael was such a good guy? Maybe Philip, in an untold part of a previous story, had told him something about Nathanael and that he was worth getting to know. Who knows? All we learn from Mark is that Jesus saw Nathanael sitting under a fig tree long before Philip told him to get up and go meet Jesus. Surprisingly, that was all the information Nathanael needed to know. With this little bit of data about where he was sitting, Nathanael declares, "Rabbi," or teacher, "you are the Son of God." Notice Nathanael doesn't say rabbi. "You are really something, you are, Rabbi." No, he says, "Jesus, you are the very Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Now that is saying something. Jesus is utterly amazed at Nathanael's strong reply. He can't believe his ears. Jesus replies, "Come on, old boy, do you believe because I told you I saw you under a fig tree? Let me tell you right now, this very minute, you'll see greater things than these. In fact, my brother, you will see heaven burst open and the angels of God descending upon the Son of Man." Here ends the story. Now it took Mark all of 8 verses to tell you all of these intriguing stories. 8 verses. It has taken me 3 full pages, and I could have said more, but I decided because it's an annual meeting day, I better keep it short. And now, after all this lead up, I'll tell you why I needed these interesting little stories at the very beginning of Jesus's ministry. I needed them as a segue into the state of St. Joseph's Mentone. Here in the good old year of 2021, well, here it goes. I'll tell you what I think. It was the summer of 2014. I was serving a rather long interim at the Church of the Ascension in Montgomery, Alabama. My tenure at Ascension had gone extremely well. People actually liked me. I wasn't sure why. I remember I was a bit nervous at first being at Ascension because it was a very large and magnificent church right smack dab in the middle of Montgomery, Alabama. Into this marvelous place, I received an inquiry if I might be interested in coming to the small town and church in Mentone, Alabama. I told this person something to the effect as to why in the world would I want to leave a big church like this and with all its prestige and resources, and then head somewhere small. I thought big churches were where my destiny would bring me. Nonetheless, I gave this person several requests to be met if I were to come. Both of us determined that my place would be best served elsewhere. After this encounter, I heard nothing back for months. I pretty much put St. Joseph's out of my head. But strange things were afoot. A God thing was afoot. Both of us, St. Joseph's and myself, came closer in our wants and needs, and we began to talk directly with each other. I had never served in a small church before. I actually avoided them. Truthfully, I moved to Aberdeen, South Dakota to avoid a small church in Alabama. Can you imagine going to South Dakota to avoid a small church? I wound up in a town that had 25,000 people in it, the third largest town in South Dakota, and only 40 miles from the North Dakota border. But I was in a bigger church. Back in those days, I couldn't figure out what in the world I would do in a small church. How in the world would I fill my time? And then there was Rita, who always found her niche in larger choirs. There was certainly not a large and important choir at St. Joseph, quite the opposite. In fact, when I came to the music program at St. Joseph, I discovered that it was really not very good. And that was probably putting it mildly. Yes, Rita and I had always tried to stay out of small churches. Yet here I was thinking strongly about coming to St. Joseph. After all, Sunday services drew 30 people or less, and most Sundays less. Then I heard Philip's words, "Come and see." And that's all it took. Upon arriving, both Rita and I instantly fell in love with this parish and town. There is so much talent and desire here. Now, after almost 6.5 years at St. Joseph, it is in fact the best place I have ever been. And I am so fortunate and thankful to God for sending me here. I love it. Upon arriving, I have met a great many people at St. Joseph's who have heard the same words as Nathaniel and myself. Come and see. I believe that after we came, the hardworking people of St. Joseph's put us right to work. With God's help together, we rebuilt our church. Together, we continue to build the food pantry, thanks to marvelous men like Jim and Burton and Paul, and on it goes. And the women in the church, Julie, I'm going to skip somebody, make them mad. I won't forget Joan though. But all those people were there. We cleaned up our churchyard thanks to Kat's supervision, and built over the last 3 years a marvelous sacred garden by the help of Mike, and used this church and town, which is used by both the church and the town alike. My growing discretionary fund, which predominantly is funded by you, has allowed me to fund some unusual things. Yes, I am allowed to help people pay the usual things like utilities, but also odd things like buying an axe to help people chop wood for their fireplace, or purchase a pair of desperately needed boots for a man who did a lot of walking and needed them desperately. Recently, my discretionary fund had enough to purchase a lazy boy chair for someone who couldn't easily get into bed. I have purchased this metal ramp, which allows a woman to get to her front door. I know it's hard to believe, but I've never run out of money in my discretionary fund. I don't even worry about it anymore. Whenever I get close to running out of funds, somehow, someone graciously, led only by the Spirit of God, without any direction for me, sends me a gift or sends a gift to the discretionary fund. In all the other churches, my discretionary fund mostly went to help the church, not so much the people who needed it. Friends, this is the way a discretionary fund is supposed to be. And I love it this way. Beyond that, we have a large scholarship program, which is thankfully growing to help the students from all over our area go to college. I am especially reminded of a girl who was the first one to graduate, not from college in her family, but from high school. Her family was not behind her. They had no money. They wouldn't give her any money. And all this, and what happened, we helped aid this young lady through college, where she earned a double major, not in 4 years, but in 3, and then graduated. Then again, we are supporting our School of Theology, Sewanee seminarian, Sherry Harrison. If nothing else, we're buying her book or helping her buy her books, which are extremely expensive. Well, globally, we are helping a fine Haitian woman by the name of Lovely. We are helping her get her schooling that she needs to work with her people back home in Haiti. And that has been a blessing to me and to the vestry, for sure, who knows a little bit more about it, perhaps, than the rest of you, which we hope to remedy soon. Beyond that, through ECW, this parish has funds to help finance our friends and neighbors' dental needs. We have a fund to buy gas to get into doctor's appointments if people can't make it on the gas they have. We have some 30 people writing pen pal letters to some fine folks at an assisted living facility down the mountain. And in the last year, thanks to Carl Ferguson and his trusty helpers, we have put together a Zoom broadcasting program which allows us to Zoom live from throughout our church and Sacred Garden to anywhere. This fine network also allows us so much versatility in what we can offer, from the unique Christmas program to the outdoor services, to noonday prayer and to Compline during the week. We also have broadcast ECW meetings, vestry meetings, and other parishes as necessary. Our Zoom broadcasting has become so important to us that it will remain with us long after the pandemic is only dreamt of in our worst nightmare. During this past year, my role has become one of trying to keep us as one holy, loving, and joyful family. It is my focus, yet there's my focus, yet there's always room to grow, and I often fail. I have purposely tried to keep all of us involved with each other. We began last year growing in numbers. We were actually at our strongest point until November 15th came. And March 15th, when the church hit a bit of a detour and we closed our doors, but that wasn't the end of the story. While our numbers went down a tad, I suppose, most of you began coming to us in Zoom and continued your strong and committed giving. I tried to perk up our parish newsletter, the e-flash, by bringing some fun to its pages. I try to communicate everything that is going on. I see our e-flash as the glue between our worship and our daily life, even if it isn't read all the time by many folks, I suppose. Still, it is difficult not to be able to reach out and grab your hand and give a quick hug. I miss the physicality of being together. I miss coffee hour. I miss sharing first Sundays together for dinner. Thankfully, the food pantry folks are around the church each Wednesday morning. They give me a rush of being with other people. Mike often makes our day by giving and bringing marvelous brownies that he are homemade for us to snack in. And then there's Buddy and all his projects. I can't tell you all the things he's been through this last year. And he is amazing and we love him. My senior warden has done so much yeoman's work. Whatever is asked, Ron doesn't. Our vestry has been without renown. Kat has done amazing work in our front yard and in the sacred garden. We love her so. And Melinda, what more can I say? She's involved not only as our administrator assistant, but in probably every phase of the church. If anyone knows more about what's going on, it's probably Melinda. All of them do more than asked. I am a blessed priest and rector, or part-time rector. I am amazed at the quality of the work that they all do. You people, my friends, my parishioners, you truly are terrific. And because of you, people outside of our walls continue to come to this parish, even now, even through this awful pandemic. Others come and see because they have heard of our marvelous love of God, each other, and our neighbors. They have heard the call of Philip through you, and they come. And when they come, they see the love of God transforming a parish, and they want that for themselves. My friends, keep asking people to come and see, even through this pandemic. But just beware, just be sure to wear your mask and stay socially distanced. Keep telling people to come and see. Together, you and I can, with God's help, bring joy and hope to all we meet. Amen and alleluia.